Today's episode is brought to you with the support of the Brain Collective in Harrogate. They're a brilliant team who specialise in helping people understand how their brains are functioning and how to optimise mental well-being. They work with everything from focus and sleep to stress and resilience, using gentle, non-invasive techniques like neurofeedback and brain mapping. What I love about it is that it's not about labels or diagnosis, it's about understanding your brain and what it needs to thrive. I've had the pleasure of speaking with people who've worked with them, and the feedback is always the same. They say they're supportive, empowering and eye-opening. So a big thank you to the Brain Collective for sponsoring this episode, and you can find out more about their work at thebraincollective.co.uk. We're back for part 3 in our 3-part series with Laura Davis. In this final episode, we reflect on the deeper emotional shifts that can happen through outdoor therapy. And Laura offers a beautiful wisdom on how we can carry nature's lessons into everyday life. So let's get into our final episode.
And I think what holds us in those places, I'm thinking about alcohol when you're talking about that, reducing alcohol, is again comes down to our identity and trying to hold on to the idea of, if I'm not someone who drinks or parties or goes out and does this or has fun when I'm drinking, what will that mean for me? What will that be? And I'm talking from personal experience as well. So sometimes kind of holding on to these ideas of, okay, well, I can still try and do this and I can still try and have this identity, rather than the idea of like, well, what's my identity as a non-drinking person? You know, that's quite a thing to let go of.
Yeah.
For me, you know, for other people too, and hard to then kind of break those habits, because who am I now? You know,
Absolutely.
especially when we associate drinking and things with kind of being young, I think. And that idea of, okay, so if I'm stopping doing that, that means I'm not fun anymore and I'm not spontaneous and I'm not young and I'm not, you know, which is one of the things for menopause, the idea of, okay, I'm moving into this other stage where I'm older now and my body's reminds me that that's the case. And now suddenly, what does that mean? You know, scary.
Yeah, it is. And you know, for me, the thought of giving up drink would have, when I used to drink, that would have been a huge part of my life, huge part of my culture. And so to not have that just wouldn't have been realistic for me at all. I can remember my sister said, let's go hiking. And I thought, not sure about that one. So she said, well, we'll go to the pub after. So I said, okay, I'm in. So I mean, I didn't like hiking at all. I didn't like it. I wasn't fit at all. So it was hard work. We were hiking up a mountain. But now the fun and the social I get from the gym and I joined, She Runs Lincolnshire, which is a women's running group, which is fabulous. Big shout out to She Runs Lincolnshire. Yeah, so I've just found different things to do that are fun than go to the pub, which I would have never considered before. But now, obviously, I'm much healthier and happier because I'm, physically feel much better, and the way my brain works and everything is better. Everything's better. So it's difficult to imagine when you're in, a certain habit, I suppose. It's difficult to imagine anything different. But it is, as I've found, just about forming those new habits, really. What's happened to you through this process of perimenopause?
I think being outside for me is helpful. Not necessarily with the indicators as such, but again, just with this messaging about it being a natural process and recognizing that there's benefit in moving into that next stage. And but I suppose people could talk about it as second spring, but I think of it more as autumn. The idea of, the leaves are kind of falling down into the ground, but they still have worth. The leaves falling into the ground turn into mulch, and the minerals that come from those leaves help to go into the soil and make the soil rich for new things to grow. So there's sort of still worth in that. I think there's a lot of messaging around women as we get older, losing our worth and losing, this is in the West maybe more so, but losing our kind of value somehow. And nature, again, is a reminder that isn't the case, that actually everything has value, and there's a benefit for being in autumn. And there's something nice about being in autumn as well, although, we can still long for the summer. There's still something about being in autumn that's a special time and something that we can make from it. So I think for me, particularly around, as I said, those sort of two parts, the indicators and then the transitional part, I think for the transitional part, being in nature is something that's really, again, a teacher and a good reminder about what's going on in terms of cycles and how that works for me. It's comforting, I think, and reassuring.
Yeah.
And empowering, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to come back to that, the seasons, but I guess I was thinking we lose a lot of confidence as well, don't we, through perimenopause, because things start to change. Our cognition sometimes, our physical, our bodies start to change and all the rest of it. So we can lose confidence and we can feel that, oh, that's it. We've lost our strengths and our identity, which I like the way that you describe it there, that actually it's just something natural that we're going through, that we can take the opportunity to look inside ourselves, ask ourselves the questions that we need to find out what's going on with us and what could work better for us. Do we need to make small changes? What can I start with today? That kind of thing. And so I really like that. But let's go back to the seasons, because we work at 100 miles an hour, 12 months of the year. And I was speaking to somebody else about this on a recent podcast, Emma from the School of Naturopathy. And she was touching a little bit on seasons, where there's actually some of the seasons are where we're supposed to take a bit of reflection time. We're not supposed to work at 100 miles an hour all year through, are we? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I really like it. I definitely, over the last couple of years, personally, have moved a lot more into awareness of seasons and where I am seasonally. So, and again, I think there's kind of inner and outer seasons. So if we're thinking about the seasons in general, spring is a time around new beginnings, around starting something new, around the seeds are starting to shoot up, things are starting to grow. It's a good time to make New Year's resolutions. Often we do that in the winter, which is the worst time, but actually spring is a great time as we're kind of getting that energy to move forward as things are starting to shift. And then summer is seen as a time of growth and abundance. The element associated with summer is fire. So the idea of our fire coming in and growing and developing and shifting in that way. And then autumn is the harvesting time. So it's the time to see what's left in the embers of the fire, essentially what's burnt away, what's been left. What have I learned from my summer and what am I going to do with that? And then taking that into the winter time, which is the time of internal process and reflection and coming into self and slowing down a lot. We think about what's happening outside at winter time, things are slowing down, but it doesn't mean stopping. I think often in winter we get this sense of everything's stuck and still, but actually, under the soil, things are still moving. Things are starting to germinate, ready for spring again. Spring doesn't just happen. There is a process in that as well. So kind of being aware of that and not putting pressure on yourself around those different times of year. I mean, Christmas obviously is difficult to be slower for a lot of people because of, of the time that it is. But that can be really helpful to notice that and to be kind of kinder to yourself on that. But then within your own internal processes, you can recognize, we can go through all 4 seasons in a week or something like that, So it's kind of connecting with yourself and recognizing what season am I in at the moment. If you're in doing some kind of work project, where am I in that project? Am I at the beginning, middle? Am I harvesting? What's going on? Obviously not just work, but any kind of internal processing that you might be doing. So a sense of, okay, right, actually I'm in my I'm in my summer at the moment. That's why I'm so fiery. That's why I'm doing this. But, you know, in a week's time, okay, I might be in autumn. Like, this is the time of harvesting that information. This is the time of reflecting on what's worked and what hasn't. It doesn't mean that I have to be full in summer, like all the time within my body. I can move into the different places and benefit from each of those points as well. So if you are feeling that you're in a winter place within yourself in some kind of internal process, okay, what is that affording me? What do I need to do with this season, and what's it offering me? What do I need to do to then move into spring? Is one way of looking at it. You know, again, different people might hold that differently, but it's a nice way, I think, of working with the external seasons, but also your own internal landscape as a part of that too.
I just like that because I like the idea of us not expecting 100% of ourselves all the time, because that's unrealistic. And that's where we start to compare ourselves to others and others who seem to be smashing life, when in reality, we do have flake days. We do have lower days or more tired days or whatever, due to whatever external factors. So I think that's why I really like that, is to feel okay when we're having a day of, actually, I'm just not feeling it today. I'm just going to try and take care of myself a little bit better, which is another thing that we don't really do. Take some deep breaths, take a little walk. I don't know, something that might recharge our batteries a little bit. Just a quick pause in the episode to let you know about something special. If you're enjoying these conversations, you'll love what's waiting for you over on the brand new Member Vaults page. You'll find free downloads, bonus podcast episodes, and a chance to explore my VIP club. A supportive space packed with exclusive resources. We'll have monthly Zoom sessions or online video sessions, and a private podcast feed just for members. So head over to angelineht.co.uk to dive in. So that's angelineht.co.uk. Everything's in one place, and it's all made with you in mind. Okay, now back to the episode. So I really like that idea of not taking ourselves so seriously all the time as well, and giving ourselves a little bit of a breather here and there. Absolutely. And then we're more productive. When we do that, we're actually more productive when we come back to it in a day or so.
And even within, I mean, I don't know about your experience, but for me, like for a while now, I've been tracking my cycles, and I was in menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
And I noticed at different times of that cycle, I have more energy to do things as well. So, for example, when I'm ovulating, I feel like I'm essentially in summer. I've got that kind of drive and like, right, okay, I'm getting my things. You know, after my periods ended, I often feel quite winter actually with that. And whilst we can't necessarily control that, what's happening, even being aware of it and realizing, you know, this will change and this will pass. I might not be able to control it, but I recognize this is what I'm in at the moment, can be a helpful way of feeling more okay with it, rather than, oh God, why am I not doing this? Or why am I doing this? Or, oh God, you know, all of that. It can be a really helpful thing to do for women, regardless. It doesn't have to be perimenopausal, just at any point. I think tracking your cycle is a really helpful thing.
Absolutely. It's all about how we feel about ourselves, isn't it, really? When we're not performing, or when we're, for whatever reason, like you say, the menstrual cycle is definitely a factor. And good for guys to understand what goes on as well, and our partners, husbands, whoever, our family members, because then they can understand, you know, if we're a little bit more tired at a certain time, then you know, it's really good to get this information out for everyone, really, because it's hugely important how we speak to ourselves and what we believe about ourselves. So shouldn't beating ourselves up that, oh, you know, well, I'm lazy because I'm feeling so exhausted on a particular day and all that kind of thing. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that you know, let's be a bit more realistic in our expectations, really, of ourselves and others. You know, our bosses as well need to be a bit more realistic at times, I think, as well. What would you say to anyone who is just beginning to experience or have been experiencing perimenopause and indicators? What would you say to them in incorporating nature, I suppose? What can they do? What small thing can they do today or this week that might be helpful?
For me, talking about perimenopause specifically, I think there's something about community and finding people, community that you can talk to and get support and share with. So connection is within that. So include nature connection within that. And there are lots of different ways that you can connect with nature. I think the first thing is to realize it's there, which might seem like an odd thing, but for me, when I started to realize that nature was there and proactively want to engage with it, suddenly it opened a whole new world to me and so many doors that I hadn't really kind of considered. So even like a small thing like if you go for a walk, not having your headphones in and just noticing what's going on around you can be a great way of starting to almost start that conversation. Nature, just noticing is the first kind of step, I think, to forming that connection. And it's really hard for people to do that, I think, actually, to just walk along without having something going on, whether that's because they feel there's something they have to do or something that they want to listen to or so on. But just experiencing that being can make such a difference. That's a really first small step, I would say, in nature awareness. And that leads to connection too.
Absolutely. Because the nature of menopause, and again, going back to what you were saying, hugely important how we think about it. Because if we are feeling alone and there's something wrong with us, and that, it can be a disconnecting, lonely feeling, and we're struggling to talk about it with anyone because we feel we're losing our identity. And I hear this a lot from professional women that, gosh, I'm used to talking in a conference on a subject. I've never had any problems with that, and now I'm struggling to find my words. And so some women can find it difficult to admit that they've always been known to be this quite capable, professional person. So that for the women that struggle to express it and admit it, really, that can be hugely isolating, can't it? So yeah.
Yeah, and in that environment as well that you're talking about, I imagine more kind of corporate world. How easy is it to say that I'm not able to do these things anymore? You want to. I obviously don't think it's a weakness, but the idea of if I'm suddenly saying I can't do this anymore, is it better to hide it and try and kind of get through rather than speak to someone? If I kind of give this information to other people, what might they do with it as well?
Hope they
To
don't
some degree.
hope I don't get found out, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why it's really important to find your community with it, I think, because your community might not necessarily be able to speak to people that you work with. It might affect, we're talking very hypotheticals here, and I do know that in corporate world, views around menopause is shifting quite a bit, and there's a lot more workshops on it and education and policies and all sorts of things. So it does feel it's moving in the right direction, but I could still see why it might be something that's difficult to talk about or discuss in particularly high-powered roles for women, and how they might be perceived as a result of that, regardless of whether it's something shifts as a direct result or just an indirectly way of you not being chosen to do certain things anymore, or you being overlooked in a way because of assumptions that people might make about your capability as a result. So it's really about finding those spaces that you're able to feel welcome and accepted. Let's see, for me, that's outdoors, but with other humans as well, I think is an important part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that there's potentially some shame in that, isn't there? Anything that we feel we don't want other people to find out about, we don't want somebody to know about us or us. That's shame, really, isn't it? It's not. It's thinking that we're a bad person, or we're no good, or it's not that we've made a mistake. That's kind of feeling a little bit of guilt. But to feel shame, that's more along the lines of, there's something lacking in me as as who I am. So yeah, that's a really good good message, actually. Don't be alone in this. Reach out, family, friends, or a local group or an online group, whatever it may be, or a therapist. Whatever's going to help you, but really don't be alone in it. Most women experience something in terms of perimenopause and menopause. So that sounds good. Just to reach out, and then from that, you'll start to get little top tips and advice as well on and the 6 pillars of living medicine. Engage in the podcast and try and just incorporate one small thing at a time. Don't be overwhelmed with everything that people feel that they should be doing. And in terms of exercise and nutrition, it's all about just making one small change each day or each week even, really. It's one step closer to your future self if you're only making one change a week. Okay, fair enough. So, as we were saying earlier, and the importance of that as well is to experiment. What's going to work for you? Because a lot of what we hear online, it's blanket advice, isn't it? So, find out what works for you, what you can enjoy, and what you can sustain as well in trying to listen to your body and all that kind of thing. What advice or what would you say to someone who's hesitant or unsure about outdoor therapy in general?
I mean, I think it depends why they might be hesitant because, as I say, it isn't for everybody. And I think that's, important. As we know, any type of therapy isn't for everybody. Otherwise, there'd only be one type, essentially. So, I suppose if it's something that, a couple of the things that come up mainly for me that people question is around the weather is the first one. And the other one is confidentiality. So the weather is something that can be negotiated, and most outdoor therapists will do that. There are clients that I have that are happy to go out in any weather. There are clients that I have that only will go out if it's not raining, and we contract around how that will work. So I would say don't let weather put you off because it's manageable and there's ways to work around that. So if that's a barrier, then that's something that's worth discussing. And similarly with confidentiality, different people work in different spaces outdoors and it can mean different levels of confidentiality in how it's managed. So it's really about understanding your barriers and figuring out if they're hard barriers, and they may well be, and that's fine, or whether or not speaking to someone that works outdoors might be able to give you a better understanding of what it would be like. And a lot of, similar with most therapists having introductory sessions. So if I have a client that wants to work outdoors, we'll have an introductory session first off. So they can just have an experience of what it's like to be outside talking to me, and then they can decide what they want to do from there. So it's always good, I think, anyway, when you're looking for someone new to work with, to speak with lots of different people and see what works for you. But there's often the option to give things a bit of a go and see how it feels rather than being committed to, a large amount of work. So yeah, that would be my advice. Information, I suppose, is the thing to find out more and to see whether it might fit with you.
Yeah. As always, individualize it, experiment, find what works for you. You might try one type of therapy and it might not fit. So, try something else or even a different therapist within the same modality. Sometimes it just happens that just doesn't click, not for any fault of anybody, but it just doesn't work. So, again, find what works for you. Do that introspection. What does this feel like for me? Somebody else might have got on really great with it. That's fine. But what does this really feel like for me?
Mm.
So, yeah.
And one thing I think you can do as well, when we're thinking about outdoor therapy, we're thinking about people's relationship to nature as well and how they connect with or don't connect with, or what it's like for them to be part of that. One thing that I do regularly, most days I would say, is something which is called Greet the Day, which people often sort of talk about, which is the idea of going and spend, taking 5 minutes or something to go and sit outside. It can be the same spot that you go to every day. It can be a different spot depending, but just going outside and seeing what it feels like to be outside and greeting the day, like welcoming the day, noticing what's going on around you, noticing the birds, the animals, the wind, the trees, all of those things, and just spending some time working on that relationship a little bit to see what comes up for you too. And if it's something that you feel that you want to build on, outdoor therapy will obviously help with that, but also exploring your own nature connection would also be a path that would be more open to you, I think, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, it all sounds super interesting and really helpful as another option, really, for people to feel more at ease within that environment. What does connection, what does the word connection mean for you these days?
I think for me, connection has moved into the idea of awareness of being relation to or with something else or someone else. I'm trying to think what it is about that feels right. I think the more that I move forward in life, so throughout the work that I do, but also in terms of personally, I'm really realizing that we are in relation to each other and to the non-human and to other things, depending on your spiritual beliefs, and that we're not alone. And so the more that we are aware of that, the more we can be aware of our impact in terms of its impact on us, but also our impact on other people as well. So we are all connected. Everything is all connected as far as I'm concerned. And I feel like we kind of are losing that sense of connection with each other, but also with the outdoor world. You know, in the book I mentioned, the Sharon Blakey book, she talks about how previously we were very much in touch with nature and very much followed our intuition. And then different systems came in place, including religion and patriarchal systems and so on, which kind of started to separate us. And the more separate that we've become from nature, the less respectful we are of it and the less we kind of care about it, essentially. And it feels to me a bit as if human species is almost moving in that direction as well, that we're becoming less connected to each other, we're becoming more separate, we're relying more on machines than we are relying on each other. And as a result of that, we are less connected and less, as a result, less respectful to each other as well. I do think, I mean, I'm saying this, but as I'm saying it, I'm aware that perhaps we're noticing that absence and people are trying to find connection in other ways. Like I've noticed a lot more women's groups popping up, sacred spaces, finding community, that people are trying to do that and finding community in nature, which I don't know if it's hard because you never quite know if it's the bubble that you're moving around in or if actually that's an indication of what's happening in the bigger picture. So I'm hopeful that there is almost that kind of recognition that there is that need for more community and connection and things are moving that way. But the less that we rely on each other, we go on to YouTube to find out how to do things. Information isn't passed down from families or through friends anymore. We're kind of becoming more and more self-reliant. We're almost kind of losing that way of being able to be with each other as humans. Yeah, that's where I am at the moment. Anyway.
Yeah. And I think people are looking for connection. They're looking for validation online, the likes and the follows and all the rest of it. Because we still have those basic human needs where we need each other. We know that we need to feel loved and validated, valued, and a sense of belonging and all those things. So for me, I mean, I'm with you on that one. I do believe that I'm not religious in any way, but I do think that there is something else that I call it the universe. And actually, in my work, I feel that I'm moving into a space of building a community now. That's the next step. That's what I'm getting a sense of. And feeling much more connected to people. And I get to meet great people on the podcast, such as yourself, and just interacting more in my work now, I guess, which feels great. So I'm feeling more connected with my surroundings as well. I like to meditate and feeling just more connected to the universe, I guess. And I love hiking now. And my sister's got me running as well. Like I say,
Yeah.
so I mean, who knew? Who knew? This is a whole different world for me over these last few years. It's been a gradual progression over the last few years, really. Brilliant. Where can our listeners find your work if they feel drawn to outdoor therapy?
So my website is wildheartwoodland.com. So you can find all the information about me, the different things that I offer, including the workshops and the groups, and the summer solstice event, for example, is on the 21st of June. That's coming up. So I generally put all of the stuff that I do on there, but it does explain more about outdoor therapy and how that works as well. For people that use it, I'm on Counselling Directory, so you can find me there in the East Grinstead area. And I have a Facebook profile and an Instagram as well that I post things. And I try to post more about kind of nature connection and how people can find their way of doing that as opposed to therapy, specific therapy and stuff. But yeah, all of those ways.
Awesome. Okay. That's brilliant. Laura, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your honesty and your calm presence, actually. You've got a very calm presence around you.
Thank you.
And your work is such a beautiful reminder, actually, of the healing that surrounds us. It doesn't always happen in a therapy room or in a clinic or behind a screen for that matter. Sometimes it is in the breeze or the trees or the quiet spaces or just in that calm place. If you can find your calm place, it's whatever works for you. So to all our listeners, I hope this conversation has inspired you to take one small step outdoors this week, whether it's for a walk, a breath of fresh air, or just sitting in the garden with a cup of tea. We're in for some nice weather at the time of this recording. So that's your invitation. And I really hope that you guys embrace the outdoors. There is so much to be gained by it. But until next time, take care of yourselves and remember, one small step really does matter. So it doesn't matter how small it is, just one small change today or this week. Make it something realistic for yourself and something that you can enjoy. But for now, I'll see you on the next podcast. Thanks for being with us at Happiness, Health, Relationships podcast, where small daily habits are your future self. If today's episode resonated, share it with someone you love. Follow the show, leave a quick review. It helps more people find this message of more fulfilled, healthy living. It'll also help keep the podcast going. If you want a little extra between episodes for simple weekly tips and habit challenges and behind-the-scenes updates, come hang out on Instagram at Hennessy Thompson or TikTok at AngelineHT. You'll find the links below. I'd love to connect with you there. Remember, your future isn't shaped by big leaps, it's built in the quiet, consistent choices you make every day. And we want to be with you through those choices. So keep showing up for yourself, one day, one choice, one habit at a time. And I'll see you on the next episode.